Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging deep into a catastrophic mine collapse in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's a really tough story, but it's one that shows these hidden and, honestly, brutal connections between our modern gadgets and a far-off conflict zone.
So back in late January 2016, this terrible tragedy hits the mining town of Rubaya. But to really get what happened, and more importantly, why it matters to all of us, we've got to start with the immediate and just staggering human cost.
The rebel authorities on the ground confirmed it. A series of landslides buried at least 200 people. And, the victims weren't just miners. We're talking about entire families. Artisanal diggers. These are independent miners, right? Often using just the most basic tools, but also women selling food, even children. All of them were caught in the collapse. An eyewitness, a miner named Frank Belingo, he described this absolutely horrific scene. He called it a free fall of earth that just swept people away. He said some people were buried right there in the open, while who knows how many others were trapped deep inside those hand-dug, unreinforced tunnels they'd been working in. This whole thing just unfolded over 2 terrifying days. Weeks of intense seasonal rain had completely saturated the hillsides. And a former miner explained that, with tunnels dug by hand literally everywhere, with zero safety measures, one single collapse can set off a domino effect across the entire site. And that's exactly what happened. Okay, so let's sift gears a bit. Why is this one specific mine, in this pretty remote part of the DRC, so important to the whole world? Well, it all comes down to a metallic ore called coltan. Coltan is the main source for a rare metal called tantalum. And really, tantalum is one of the unsung heroes of our digital age. It's just incredibly good at storing and releasing electrical charges, which makes it absolutely perfect for those tiny, high-performance capacitors that power pretty much every device we use every single day. So yeah, tantalum is in our smartphones and our laptops for sure, but it's also in these really critical systems like aircraft engines and life-saving medical equipment. It's basically a cornerstone of our high-tech world. Now get this. The Rubaya mines alone are estimated to produce around 15% of the entire global supply of tantalum. I mean, think about that. That means any disruption there, let alone a total collapse, is a massive shock to the entire technology industry. But here's the really crucial piece of the puzzle. Control of this incredibly valuable resource, it doesn't lie with the Congolese state. No, it lies with an armed rebel group. Ever since they seized the area back in 2024, the M23 rebels have set up their own parallel government, really. They've effectively taken over this super strategic asset to control and exploit its massive mineral wealth for their own gain. According to United Nations experts, the rebels have built a pretty sophisticated war economy right here. And just from this one mining site, they're pulling in at least $800,000 a month in revenue. And that revenue, it comes from this whole systematized taxation model they force on every single step of the process. And, this is so important, none of this money gets reinvested into safety. So while the rebels are cashing in, the miners are still working with the most basic tools in these incredibly unstable conditions, which leads directly to disasters just like this one. So the big question is, how does this conflict mineral, dug up under rebel control, leave the DRC and somehow find its way into the legitimate global market? That's what we need to unpack. Before M23 took over, there were monitoring programs in place, like one called ITSCI, that were meant to tag and certify minerals as conflict-free. But as soon as the rebels seized control, those programs had to suspend their operations. The supply chain has gone completely dark. It's become almost impossible to legally trace where this ore is actually coming from. Okay, this is where the story gets really, really interesting. A report from that traceability group, ITSC, shows this massive gap. In just the first half of 2025, their system officially recorded a little over 1,000 tons of tantalum exports from Rwanda. But, and here's the kicker, international databases recorded nearly 4 times that amount being imported from Rwanda. That gap of almost 3,000 tons, it's a huge red flag. It strongly suggests that a massive volume of untraced coltan is being smuggled from places just like Rubaya, right across the border. Experts report that this laundered mineral is then mostly bought up by Chinese companies. And from there, it gets processed, and it enters these vast, incredibly complex supply chains of many of the world's most famous electronics brands. Which means that conflict tantalum from Rubaya could potentially find its way into products sold all over the world.
So all of this, as you can see, connects back to a much larger and honestly a deeply tragic humanitarian picture.
The Rubaya disaster isn't just some isolated event. It's a symptom. It's a symptom of a decades-long conflict over resources that has created one of the world's largest humanitarian emergencies. We're talking about over 7 million people displaced and communities just trapped between violence and extreme poverty. And this just brings us to the profound inequality that's right at the heart of this trade. I mean, on one side, you've got a multi-trillion-dollar global electronics industry where tantalum is this critical, super high-value component. And on the other side, you have artisanal miners who, according to reports, earn about $1 for 14 hours of back-breaking, life-threatening work. And this leaves us with a final and, I think, a really provocative thought. The disaster at Rubaya just pulls back the curtain on a system where the very technology that brings our world closer together is sourced from a conflict that is tearing another world apart. It really forces us to ask, what is the true cost of our connection?